since this is, the first pod of the official postseason, we do have some time while in the immediacy to reflect on the season that was. And you mentioned the award that Coach Thibodeau just won, the Coach of the Month, and the award you believe he deserves, Coach of the Year.
Yep.
So I thought your listeners and your readers would enjoy hearing your award picks for the past 2020-2021 season, John. So I would like to get your official awards ballot that's, will only get counted here and probably should get counted because you watch the NBA religiously. Listen, Russillo doesn't even have one. I was stunned to hear that.
I was shocked too. I listened to, I purposely didn't listen to the pod all the way to the point where they did their all NBA because I wanted my mind to be separate. The only content I've consumed from anybody else as far as all NBA is concerned was I think whatever podcast Zach Lowe did about it a week or two ago and whatever column
he had Arnovitz on. And
yes, that was it. Yeah. Okay. But they didn't really have any finality on it. They just kind of tossed some stuff around and my opinions will be different, I think, from some of theirs. Anyway, so
we'll go through all 6 of the big categories. I'll get your picks, maybe your list of order of who will be like your top 3 or 5 in those picks. And then we'll get your 3 all NBA teams and any other straggling award mentions you'd like to make. If you want to throw an all defensive team out there, an all rookie team out there, you can. But for the first half of this pod, we'll give out awards for the previous season.
I like it. I thought about it. I'm not doing all defense because full disclosure, I do not watch enough national NBA. Like I personally don't feel like you could watch, like if I watch on average a team play 3 to 6 games every year, I don't think that's enough to like know what a guy's defensive impact is like on a night-to-night basis. Not that anyone does, but but I would not put those thoughts out there. And then all rookie, I could do a quick all rookie, but like it's again not something I feel strongly about. The other stuff though, I think that's different. So where do you want to get started?
So the order I'm going to do this in for the main awards is in order of chances a Knick has to win one. So we start with, in my opinion, not that the Knicks didn't play great defense this year, but defensive player of the year. I'd be stunned if a lot of Knicks if any Knick gets a first place vote. To be honest, if any Knick gets a third place vote, I'd be surprised. So defensive player of the year, your winner in your top 3.
So my winner for defensive player of the year, unsurprisingly, is Rudy Gobert. I think it's pretty clear. I think it's obvious. I will say, even though I'm not going to name an all defense team, I don't think any Knick has a realistic argument to make an all defense team. I just want to throw that out there as well. I've tossed around in my head whether it would be Noel or Bullock if I had to give someone a vote. I think it actually would probably be Bullock, as crazy as that is to say. But Noel has a really good argument. And second on the list is a little tough. I'll go Ben Simmons. I don't say that with a ton of conviction, but I will go Simmons because I think of the versatility, really simply. And then third is really hard, and there's some obvious names. Giannis Antetokounmpo is an obvious name.
Reigning champ.
What's that? Yeah, the reigning champ. I think Jimmy Butler has a stealth argument for this. I think there's a few other guys that you could throw out there. Joel Embiid is probably going to wind up third, I think, if I had to guess. Although actually no, Simmons, are they really going to take 2 and 3? Well, whatever. Joel Embiid will be in that conversation. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I really do feel strongly about this. I'm going to go with Clint Capella. And it's not because we have a Hawks broadcaster on this episode. It's because I think so little of some of the Hawks defensive talent, and they can at least hold their own on that end of the floor because of Clint Capella. And I think Clint Capella is like really, really good at protecting the rim. I think he does some different things. That's kind of the closest you're going to get probably for me for a hot take. But yeah, I'll go Clint Capella as third.
How far down before you get to Bam?
Bam's really good.
Mm-hmm.
But The Hawks are, they're a better team. I think he has a bigger impact on their I think you could stick some different players in there, and it's the Heat. It's like they're always going to figure out a way. Like the Hawks have been an utter dumpster fire on defense so often, and then Capella's been there, and he's like, I don't know, he scares the hell out of me. I'll say that.
Yeah, I agree. Next,
he's played a lot of games. Sorry.
Yes. Next in order would be Rookie of the Year. Shout out to Emmanuel Quickly, who I don't think will. I think he'll make an all-rookie team, but an early flyer on Emmanuel Quickly plus 2,000 to win it that I took back in February obviously didn't pan out. Thank you, Coach, for barely playing him in the second half of the season, completely canceling any chance of that happening. But your Rookie of the Year and your top three, John.
Again, I have to be genuine here. If Emmanuel Quickly had finished the year strong, I would say I would figure out a way to get him on my ballot. He's kind of, not that he's been bad, but his impact was like centered in like kind of that middle portion of the year. I'm going to go LaMelo Ball first, Anthony Edwards second, and Halliburton third.
I think it's a correct order.
Edwards was so bad for half the season, if not more than half the season. And honestly, I would even maybe consider sliding him down to third if they didn't actually, the fact that they actually started winning some games at the end of the year and like they finished around 500 for their last 20 or so games. I think like, yeah, you could say what you want. Like the games don't have meaning, but like they had meaning to them and they had meaning to him. I think they're worth something. I think Quickly is as clear a fourth place finisher as there could possibly be. Mm-hmm. I think he has an argument over Halliburton for third place. But I think Halliburton by the slightest of edges. And if you told me that you had Quickly third on your ballot, I would not fight you on that.
So next is the MVP, which again, this is in order of chances Knicks have to win. This is where I think we'll start to see a Knick get some legitimate votes. So I guess your top five for MVP, John.
So can I have to do a quick soapbox rant here. There's been this conversation. I feel like that. Well, I guess maybe I should save this rant for all NBA. No, okay. I'm going to save the rant for all NBA, but I'm going to point out something. I'm going to point out something when I give you my five. So here's my five. Number one, Nikola Jokic. And I agree. Somebody said on Twitter today that anybody who doesn't, and I think they cover the Nuggets, but still, anyone who doesn't vote Nikola Jokic for first place for MVP should have to write 1,000 words on why they voted for who they voted for. Yeah. I actually wholeheartily agree with that. Because it's such a clear choice.
Like the Bart Simpson chalkboard where he just write over and over again.
Yes.
Why didn't I vote for Nikola Jokic? Why didn't I? Yeah.
I wrote something a few weeks ago, which I'm going to reference a couple times, but I'm going to reference it for the first time right now, about how players from like not great teams historically have not been in the MVP conversation. Like they don't really get votes. At the time I wrote that, I think the Warriors were in 10th place. Since then they won, I think, 8 of 10 or 9 of 10 or something to finish the season, whatever it was. They finished really well. They finished the season in 8th place in a very tough Western Conference, 39-33, 6 games above 500. And for me, like, what is that team without Steph Curry? Are they the worst team in the league? Well, last year they were the worst team in the league, right? And I know they got a little bit better. So I'm going to give Curry my second place finish. And here's where it gets tough. Can I give you the rest of my ballot?
Yeah.
The rest of my ballot is Luka, Giannis, and Randall. I did this. Indeed.
Wow.
We're getting there.
Games played. Okay.
So, well, yeah, we're getting there. So I think the Luka and Randall, in terms of when you talk about value, right? How much they mean to their teams. I think you could make the argument that both of those guys are about as equally valuable to their respective teams. In terms of who's the better player, Luka Doncic is the better player. There's no question about that. Julius Randle's team did finished higher. They finished with a worse record though. I think the Mavs have a little bit better team around Luka than the Knicks do. I have to go Luka third, just because he's that good. Mm-hmm. And then it comes down to Giannis and Randall. And Giannis and Randall, I had Randall above Giannis when I wrote my thing 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I'm going to be a bad Knicks content creator. I'm going to flip it right now. I'm going to put Giannis fourth. I'm going to put Randall fifth. And the reason for that is I think if you look at what the Bucks would be without Antetokounmpo, what do you think? They're a handful of games below 500, maybe?
I think they're around what the Raptors were, what the Wizards were. They're clearly missing a star, but there's talent there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if you told me that they would have gone with just Middleton and Holiday and like the rest of those guys and like a league average player in Giannis' place.
32 win team.
32, 33. Okay, so great. So that means Giannis is worth, roughly 14 or 15 wins to that team. I believe Randall is worth more wins to the Knicks, but I also think that if you look at Giannis's numbers and you look at the efficiency and you look at everything else he's doing, you look at the advanced stats up and down every which way, it's enough to overcome the gap in what he means to his team versus what Randall means to his team. And then on the defensive end, Randall has had a very nice defensive year. I think Giannis is one of the 5 best defenders in the sport. So Giannis fourth, Randall fifth. Mr. Embiid. Mr. Embiid played 70.8% of his team's games this year. Do you know, since Bill Walton won the award, having played 70.7%, off by 0.1%,
mm-hmm.
how many players have played that low of a percentage of their team's minutes and appeared in the top 5? Not one, appeared in the top 5. We're talking about 43 years of NBA history.
I think you actually asked me this earlier in the year when we were discussing the MVP, and it's how many are there at least? Like, is it 2 or 3 or?
It's 0.
It's 0. Oh, that's the answer then. Okay.
So the only player who has played under 79, since Walton won the award, the only player to have played under 79% of his team's minutes or games, and appeared anywhere on a ballot was Shaq in 1998 or whereabouts, and that was a really weird year, which I don't have to get into. And he finished fourth that year. He played in 73% of his team's games. So basically, your argument has to be that Joel Embiid was so amazing in the 70.8% of his team's games that he played that he should overtake a guy who was like his entire team was based on his performance. I think if you take Embiid off the Sixers, I think there's an argument that they're still the 3 seed. Because I think they just rejigger the team around Simmons and off they go. They're not a real contender, but they're still damn good. Yes, I know Embiid's amazing defensively and his stats are what they are and they're incredible. No one's arguing that Joel Embiid's not a better player than Julius Randle or, that's crazy. But this is about value. And Julius Randle provides more value to the Knicks provided more value for the minutes he played than Joel Embiid provided to the Sixers this year. So Randall's my 5th on my MVP ballot.
It's interesting because the theme of I like the way you did your awards. And as somebody who's got kind of fed up with baseball and how, like Mike Trout, they've just figured out a way to determine how many wins he'd be. Even if you want to poke holes in wins above replacement, they're like, nope, he's worth 10 wins a year. He should win the MVP, even though they might win 57 games during the season. It's why I will understand. I don't think they should, but I will understand first place votes for Curry. Like, he's had statistically a better year than his unanimous MVP year. If Jokic didn't exist, that's one thing. Mm-hmm. But it's why I will understand if they're like, listen, this is one of the worst teams in the NBA without him, and they're gonna be, the 8th seed in the playoffs. Just from a value perspective, if you look at how he went a step up from his, the 73-9 team. So
yeah, but I will say this.
Well, I don't think there should be.
it would be unprecedented for a player on a team that finished this low in the standing. The last guy on a team who finished this low in the standings and finished as high as second was a then young man by the name of Michael Jordan in whatever year he finished. The first year he finished second. I think it was like 87, 88. No, it was maybe 86, 87.
Yeah. I understand there's a precedent, which is why I'm just saying Steph's season was unprecedented.
Oh no, it was crazy. It was a crazy season, amazing season. That's what I mean. Look, I have him second on my list. So there you go.
Sixth man of the year.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't sit here and boast this, that, and the other thing about games played, and then have Derrick Rose win this award. I will put Rose a third on the ballot though, because I think he's it goes without saying that he has done more as a sixth man for his team in the games that he's played than anyone else, and it's not close on a per minute basis as a sixth man or a per game basis as a sixth man. His impact dwarfs whoever you want to give me, Jordan Clarkson or Joe Ingles or any of those guys. As far as like who should get the first two spots, I'm fine giving it to the two Utah guys in whatever order you want. I don't really care, to be honest with you. And I don't really have a strong opinion. So I'll go Ingles 1, Clarkson 2, because I like Joe Ingles. I've always liked Joe Ingles.
So the last two are interesting because one I think is locked up and will absolutely happen. And one should be, in a lot of people's opinion, especially Knicks fans' opinion, should be locked up. But if you listen to the scuttlebutt, it sounds like it's going to be.
It's not. Yeah. So
it's going to go the opposite way. So go coach of the year and give me your thoughts.
I mean, for me, it's pretty obvious. It's Tibbs, then Monty, and then I guess I'll go Quinn Snyder third. Although you could give me 5 or 6 guys and actually, but honestly, to me, like even Monty, you could kind of, to me, it's Monty is closer to the pack than he is closer to first. And I'm not going to rehash the argument that the discussion that Jeremy had and I had on yesterday's podcast, but like, Chris Paul is the biggest reason why that team is where they are. Now, yes, I just went through how Julius Randle's fifth on my MVP ballot, which notably Chris Paul did not appear there. So how could I then say, here's the thing. Chris Paul's a point guard, and he has a demonstrable history of going into teams and like doing what basically he did with Phoenix this year. Also, Phoenix has a shit ton more talent than the Knicks, or at least that was the perception before the year, which is why their over-under before the season started was 41 games, I think, or 40,
something like that.
39. It was 39 and a half, I think. Yeah. Maybe that was it. So 39 and a half, which means like consensus is that you're going to be a really good team. And they went from a really good team to a great team. Fantastic. All the credit in the world. Was it so clearly because he like change the culture? I mean, this was a team that won 8 in a row in the bubble. Their culture had to be decent to do that. They have again, we don't need to go through the talent. What Tibbs did here with this franchise that has, all due respect to the GOAT shit in Phoenix, has a much worse track record in terms of culture. And like, again, I'll just reference what Bernard and Oz and Yash and me, this is Bernard's line and I'll steal it. The rot is in the walls. That was always like, whenever the Knicks like would potentially make a move that was like, we were like, oh, this is a good move. He's kind of a Debbie Downer. And he would be like, no. This thing is fucked from the inside. Mm-hmm. And I would always be the one to push back and be like, no, it's going to be fine. Everything's okay. But the reality is, if you look at 20 years worth of evidence, the evidence is there. Mm-hmm. They found a way to take the one decent thing that they had, and they even tossed that away. So you look at Thibodeau to come in and like the fucking whole team is just singing Kumbaya every day in different, voices and verses and whatnot. That's Tom Thibodeau. And like, yes, Leon Rose deserves a lot of credit, and Wes and the coaching staff and the whole thing. It's Tibbs. It's Tibbs. It's Tibbs. We know it's Tibbs. I don't know how you don't give the award to him. It's going to be egregious when he loses. I don't think he's going to win. But he deserves it. He deserves it. So.
Yeah. We actually, I have Monty third. I would have put Quinn above.
That's fine.
Yeah. Like it's to an extent that You're about to do your all. Well, because let's just real quick. Most improved player, Randall's gonna win it.
I guess I'll go Porter Jr. for second, and then Jeremy Grant really hasn't played a lot of games. I honestly just, this is another one of those things. I don't really have a strong feeling about who should get third.
Can I say Zion? I know like he was expected to be great, but if just by definition of the award, if Luka can finish third last year, then why can't Zion finish third this year?
Fine. That's fine. Another guy, and again, I'll steal this from the Low Post podcast episode from like 3 weeks ago. Clint Capella, I think, should also get some consideration. Mm-hmm. He might be their most important / best player. We're going to talk about him on this pod. I don't know, like Bruce Brown has had a really good season for Brooklyn. No, it's seriously, he's had a really good season. Like there's guys out there who are in the conversation. Like you want to give it to Jeremy Grant, give it to Jeremy Grant. That's fine too. I don't really.
Randall's plus 5,000. It's like this is the award that the Knicks fans can actually look forward to being presented to him this offseason.
And RJ, I think, was stronger in the conversation for me to be on the ballot until he's and I'm gonna spoiler it. I'm writing about this for Tuesday's Knicks Film School newsletter. He's been slumping inside the arc but he's right there in the conversation still.
Well, food for thought for your newsletter. It's actually given me more confidence in his NBA future that like he can be a catch and shoot player if they go and get a guy that's going to be a little more ball dominant. Because if you say, okay, RJ, just be open from three, it's like, fine, you're a 40% 3-point shooter. Point I was going to make about the coach of the year is like, if you go down the list of all NBA and MVP candidates, like the Jazz have two guys that are going to be up in conversation for all NBA. The Suns are going to have two guys that are in the conversation for all NBA, and they're going to have the defensive player of the year in there. And they're going to have, a sixth man of the year in there. And like, it's Randall. And then when does the next Knicks show up? We have Derrick Rose finishing third for sixth man. But other than that, the turnaround for all of this is unprecedented. Like even the one coaching decision that I've questioned with Tibbs is not enough to be like, well, yeah, he still turned what I thought was going to be a 17, 18 win team into a 41 win team. Like the question of, well, why didn't you eventually bench number 6? Or regardless, he did eventually adjust his minutes. So I agree with you on Thibodeau. Your all NBA teams. Let's go through this quick. Your first, second, and third teams.
All right. So again, quickly, I will try to do this fast. So first team, as should surprise no one, it's the 5 guys that are on my MVP ballot: Steph, Luka, Jokic, Giannis, and Randall. Again, there are people. This is the soapbox thing. Really, very quick soapbox thing. People seem to have this view of all NBA that if you make it over a certain minutes or games threshold, it is as if the games you've played or the minutes that you've played don't matter, which is to say, if you play, whether you play 72 or 62 or 55 or maybe 57, 58, it doesn't matter. It's not a part of the conversation. And yet, when you fall below a certain threshold, then it's like, oh, we can no longer consider you because you didn't play enough games. I don't understand why a gray area doesn't exist in the All-NBA conversation. Why isn't there a sliding scale? And I'm not saying this to be like, oh, Randall played 71 games, but such and such player played 66, that should be a difference. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what we're going to, the reason why I have Randall on my first team and I have Kawhi Leonard on my second team. Kawhi Leonard played 895 fewer minutes than Julius Randle this year. Now, you cannot tell me that Kawhi made it just barely over your threshold for he appears on the NBA teams and we're not going to look at games played and just ignore those 895 minutes. So what is it? If Kawhi had played 950 fewer minutes than Randle, then he's disqualified. Like it has to be a gray area. So I have zero qualms putting Randle on my first team. Again, everything I'm saying is like the few good men line. It's not about what I believe. It's about what I could prove. I could prove this shit.
Is that a few good men, or I have no idea where that actual line originates? Is it a few good men? Is it training day?
No, it's a few good men. It's when Demi Moore.
It's not what you know, what you can prove. Okay.
Well, because to me is talking about like, you don't think these guys are guilty, and he's and he's talked about you and so and so both live in the same dream world. It's not about what I believe; it's about what I can prove.
Okay.
And then I think I don't know. All right, I know the law. I think that was also in that part. Okay. Sorry for that.
No, believe me, it helps.
Kawhi is on my second team. And again, I don't really love any of these options. But Kawhi is on my second team with LeBron. I thought about sticking Butler on the second team instead. Jimmy Butler played 1,745 minutes. LeBron played 1,504. I just think LeBron was better, was a certain modicum better than Butler, that it overtook that discrepancy. So LeBron's on my second team with Kawhi. I have Embiid second team, Chris Paul second team, Damian Lillard on second team. I don't think any of that's those other positions are controversial. I mean, I think Embiid, Chris Paul, and Lillard are pretty lock solid. And then this was tough for me. There's about 10 to 15 names that I could have stuck in here. But I'm going to go with Gobert as my center. I'm going to go with Bradley Beal and as one of my guards. Why'd you say, oh?
No, I'm going off the national scuttlebutt. He has been a lot of people's cuts.
That's fine. So
it also means I now, by process of elimination, see you not adding a couple people. I'm interested to see what your last two are.
So no, last three. So
you said Jimmy Butler.
Butler's on my third team. Yeah. And then again, this is like, there's no easy options here. Tatum and Paul George are my last two.
Wow. Okay, so you don't have a Brooklyn Net on any of your teams.
No, and here's the reason.
Games
why.
Played.
Kevin Durant, I don't know how many games he played. It's not enough to be in this conversation. If James Harden had played all 44 of his games for the Brooklyn Nets, he would be on my third team. He played 8 of those games for the Rockets, and I don't care what his numbers were in those games. He was arguably the most actively detrimental player in the league during those 8 games. Mm-hmm. So it's almost as if he gets like a negative 16 for those 8 games that he played. So he's not on it. And then, sorry, Kyrie, can't say fuck off twice during the season and, take some, I mean, I'm all here for mental health days. I respect it totally. Here's your penalty. You get your mental health. You don't make an all NBA team. And I'm not about to feel bad about that. So
I don't disagree. Okay.
Anybody else that's like, Zion, you want to give me Zion over Tatum, Zion over Paul George. I would hear that.
Booker.
So Booker and Donovan Mitchell are the two obvious ones that didn't make it.
There's one more, but I'll wait until you get done with this.
Well, as far as Booker, I think of the two, I think Booker would probably be my pick. But I just think Beal was better. I think, and Beal played a lot of games. And where are the Wizards without Bradley Beal? Whereas if you replaced, Devin Booker with like a, decent starting shooting guard. And again, that's more the MVP conversation than all NBA. Look, if you wanted to give me, Booker over Tatum, I guess I would be okay with that. Again, this is like picking nits. Mitchell is like a hair under Booker for me, but I think those guys are also, they're right there. It's close.
The other one, I guess we should say too, because of who we have on the show coming up next. Trey Young.
I don't think he belongs in the conversation.
I don't either, but I have seen, now that I've dove into Hawks Twitter, I have seen the arguments being made, and I don't agree with them, but I appreciate people standing for their guy.
I would rather, and I think the positional stuff is abhorrent, and I would rather have Embiid as my second team forward, bump Gobert up to second team center, and have Capella as my third team center.
Really?
I would rather do that than put Trey Young on an all NBA team.
Oh, wow. Okay. I would put Bam above Capella. That's interesting.
Oh, I think Capella's been better than Bam this year. I would think really highly of Clint Capella.
I clearly do. The other big one's going to be Westbrook because he averaged a triple-double. Listen, I'm with you. I get the counting stats are impressive. There are things he does that benefit him but cost his teams wins, and there's a long track record for this.
It's the Anthony Edwards discussion. Russell Westbrook was actively bad for, I don't know how many, 30, 40 games this year.
It is literally up until the trade deadline when they lost. They blew that second half game to the Knicks, and he shot ridiculously poorly in the second half. And then since that game, he's averaged like 27, 13, and 16 since then.
But again, if like, people are going to be like, oh, he was hurt or adjusting to new team. Like, I don't care. Like, this is all NBA. This is MVP. These are major awards. If you the time for excuses is done. If you don't make it, there could be a caveat to why you don't make it. I'm happy to say to anybody who ever asked me about Russell Westbrook not making an All-NBA team, like, well, he was hurt, so that's why he didn't make it. But he didn't make it. That's the point. And he better not make it this year. That would be, if he made it over Booker or Mitchell, I would put him in over Young. But again,
I'm more preparing myself for the talking points that will make it onto the national stage the next day after the teams are announced. And it's like, how does Russell Westbrook not make an All-NBA team averaging a triple-double? And that will be the conversation.
And that'll be really the other guy that I think does deserve mention, I guess, because he's the second best player on a top seed, as is Mitchell. But we mentioned Mitchell is Ben Simmons.
I was waiting for it, but I think what he does, I actually think he has a stronger case than Russ because of how.
Oh, I agree.
How the Sixers played when Embiid was out.
I completely agree. He has a better case than Russ. And then for that matter, I think Jaylen Brown would have at least been in the conversation had he not gotten injured late, which I think he was already on the fringes for me. And then that pushed him out of it. Last guy I will mention is Zach Levine. Not in, but deserves mention.
I see what you're doing. You're saying, oh, there's a Knicks podcast out there that thought you should have been in consideration, even though you missed the playoffs.
No, his shooting numbers. His shooting numbers are ridiculous. His shooting numbers are absolutely.
Knock him
insane.
up. Tell him more how great he was, John.
But again,
free agency is only a year away.
Yeah, there you go. I actually don't even want Zach. Zach Levine was last summer. We moved our sights
again. Sets our broadened our horizons, as
John
Macri once said.